Abusive parents facing hatred from entire family part 1. It's hard to know where to even begin with this, but I guess the beginning makes the most sense. I'm 26, the youngest of 5, and by the time I was 10, I was basically alone in the house. My siblings had all grown up and moved out. My parents separated when I was around 6 because my mother cheated with a family friend who eventually became my stepfather. They didn't officially divorce until I was 12, but for those 6 years, my mother and I lived with him. That's when the real nightmare started. From around age 9 or 10 until I was 17, my stepfather molested me. The disgusting part? My mother knew, and she didn't stop him. They even forced me to watch porn with them, had sex in front of me, and would talk to me about their sexual lives like I was part of it. My stepfather would pin explicit photos of women on the walls, and he complained about my mother's performance to me like I was his therapist. It was sick. Privacy didn't exist in that house. I wasn't allowed to close my door, not when I slept, not even when I took a bath. Once, I accidentally closed it a little too much, and he lost his temper completely. At night, he'd force me to touch him, pull my hands toward him while I cried and beg him to stop. He even admitted to having sex dreams about me, all while my mother sat there, doing nothing. That he was emotionally abusive too. Anything could set him off. If I accidentally stepped on his foot or bumped him with a shopping cart, he'd explode. I got straight A's in school, but it was never enough. I could never do enough to please him. At one point, when I was 12, he poked me in the eye during one of his tantrums, and when I swatted him back with a dish towel, he acted like I committed a crime. They also poisoned me against my father. They told me he didn't want me, that he refused to pay child support, and that he'd started a new family. I believed them. It never occurred to me that they were lying. It wasn't until years later that my dad showed me proof he'd paid everything, even more than he was ordered. That I guess I had some kind of Stockholm syndrome, because I still looked up to my mother and him. I did everything they wanted. They treated me like a servant, and I was too scared to say no. When I got a scholarship to study mining engineering, they refused to let me go. They said they couldn't afford university, even though my brother had offered to pay for everything. I didn't find out until I was 24, and it still hurts. Things finally started to click when I was 16. I visited one of my sisters, and her husband tried to molest me. I told her, and she went ballistic, kicked him out, and protected me. That's when I realized how wrong everything was at home. When I went back and confronted my stepfather, he acted like I'd insulted him. He told me not to generalize all men, said he'd stop, and then posted something self-pitying on Facebook about being betrayed. The final straw came when my nephews, who were living with us at the time, stole from my mom's purse, including my medication. I was furious, but my mother didn't care. So yeah, I basically tore down the empire of lies they built. Now, no one in the family talks to them. They're social outcasts in their small town, trying to paint me as a monster. But everyone knows the truth. The irony? They still have me listed as the sole heir in their will. No one else wants their money, and they have no one left. They built their lives on abuse and lies, and now they get to sit in the ruins, hated by everyone who once loved them.